Emperor Yaksa bellowed with haughty laughter, wine sloshing from his jeweled goblet as he slapped the table. He and his sycophantic advisors guffawed at exaggerated tales of human inferiority, the dining chamber echoing with their mirth. The conquered world of Zobrath hosted this banquet in Yaksa's honor, its inhabitants compelled to serve the sneering Tellarite elite. "Those bipedal apes consider their ships advanced," Yaksa snorted, "as if their primitive crafts could challenge my armada. We shall remind them of their place soon enough." 50 years ago, the Earth-Tellarite War ended in a tenuous ceasefire after brutal campaigns ravaged both sides. Now, a new human vessel readied for its maiden voyage under Captain Justin Wilson's command. Christened the Heracles, it represented the pinnacle of innovation with its quantum flux engines, gluon shields, and neutron cannons. Wilson stood tall on the bridge, determined to defend Earth's interests as they ventured into the stars. Alarms suddenly wailed on Yaksa's flagship. Traitorous generals had staged a coup, seizing control of vital systems. Outgunned, the Emperor fled to a small shuttle, his pilot frantically working the controls. But the rebels showed no mercy, unleashing torrents of plasma fire that ripped through the hull. The pilot's body slumped over the sparking console, leaving Yaksa alone as the craft careened off course. Maria Ortiz, the Heracles sensor officer, detected a faint distress beacon. Wilson quickly diverted to investigate the signal source. Scanners revealed a crippled Tellarite shuttle drifting in the void, its sole living occupant the infamous Emperor Yaksa himself. Tense deliberations ensued. Rescuing Yaksa might promote peace, but at what cost? As the shuttle's reactor neared critical failure, Wilson made the call. Marines with pulse rifles at the ready, they brought the craft aboard. Uncertain if this act of mercy would lead to the Tellarite Empire's salvation or humanity's ruin. The future of Earth and Teleria hung in the balance. The security team moved with practiced efficiency, pulse rifles at the ready as they breached the Emperor's crippled shuttle. Acrid smoke stung their eyes and throats, the tang of scorched metal sharp in the air. Yaksa lay slumped against the bulkhead, his once resplendent robes tattered and singed. Lieutenant Commander Chen knelt beside the unconscious Tellarite, nimble fingers checking for a pulse. "He's alive, but barely," Chen reported, already unfolding a collapsible stretcher. "We need to get him to sickbay, Stat." Captain Wilson watched as the medical team hustled Yaksa through the Heracles' gleaming corridors, a deep furrow creasing his brow. The Emperor's presence aboard his ship was a diplomatic nightmare waiting to happen. By all rights, he should contact the Tellarite authorities immediately. But with a coup in progress, who could say which faction would answer? Trust the wrong side, and he could inadvertently hand Yaksa over to his would-be executioners. In sickbay, Dr. Nakamura worked with quick, precise movements, her face a mask of concentration as she tended to the injured Emperor. Yaksa's eyelids fluttered, a groan escaping his lips as he clawed his way back to consciousness. His gaze sharpened, taking in the sterile surroundings and the human medical staff. "Where am I?" he snarled, struggling to sit up. "What is the meaning of this?" "Please, Your Majesty, try to remain calm," Dr. Nakamura said, her tone soothing but firm. "You're aboard the UES Heracles. We rescued you after your shuttle was attacked." Yaksa's lip curled in a sneer, his eyes roving over the sickbay's gleaming equipment. "Rescued by humans," he spat, "and subjected to your primitive medicine. I demand to speak with your captain at once." Wilson rubbed his temples, the beginnings of a headache pulsing behind his eyes as he convened his senior staff in the briefing room. Commander Prescott leaned forward, her gaze intent. "Sir, we're in a delicate situation here. The Tellarite Empire is in chaos, and our actions could tip the balance one way or the other." "I'm well aware of that, Commander," Wilson said, his voice tight. "But we can't just sit on our hands. Lieutenant Commander Singh, what's the status of the Emperor's shuttle?" Singh called up a holographic schematic, the damaged craft slowly rotating in midair. "The damage is extensive, but repairable. If we commit our resources, we could have it flight-worthy again within a day or two. The sooner we can get the Emperor off the Heracles, the better." "Agreed," Wilson said. "Make it happen." He turned to Ortiz. "Lieutenant, I want you to monitor all comm channels for any sign of—" The intercom crackled to life, interrupting him. Captain, Emperor Yaksa is requesting an audience. He's being rather insistent. Wilson sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Understood. Tell His Majesty I'll be there shortly. He straightened his uniform, squaring his shoulders as he prepared to face the belligerent emperor. This promised to be a delicate dance indeed, with the fate of worlds hanging in the balance. Wilson strode into sickbay, his lips pursed as he approached the bio-bed where Emperor Yaksa lay propped up on pillows. The Tellarite's eyes narrowed, his tusks gleaming in the harsh light. "So the human captain deigns to visit," Yaksa growled. "Come to gloat over my misfortune?" Wilson held up a hand, his voice level. "Your Majesty, we're approaching Tellarite space. We need to discuss our next move." Yaksa's laugh was bitter. "Our next move? You presume much, human. I am Emperor of the Tellarite Empire. I do not need your—" A violent coughing fit interrupted his tirade. Dr. Nakamura rushed forward, administering a hypospray with practiced ease. As the Emperor's breathing eased, Wilson saw a flicker of vulnerability in those porcine features. "Your Majesty," Wilson said, leaning in, "I understand your reluctance to trust us, but right now we may be your only chance to regain your throne." Yaksa's eyes narrowed, but he remained silent. Wilson pressed on. "We have resources that could help you retake the palace. Advanced technology your enemies won't expect. But we need information, detailed schematics, security protocols, anything you can provide." For a long moment, Yaksa glared at Wilson. Then slowly he nodded. "Very well, human. I will share what I know. But make no mistake, this changes nothing between our peoples." Over the next hours, Yaksa and Wilson pored over holographic displays of the palace. The Emperor's clawed finger traced invisible lines as he outlined defensive systems and secret passages. "The throne room is here," Yaksa grunted, tapping the display. "Heavily fortified, but there's a maintenance conduit that leads directly beneath it." Wilson nodded, his mind racing. "We could use that. Your Majesty, what if we cloaked your shuttle? Our engineers have developed a prototype that could mask its energy signature." Yaksa's eyes widened, a hint of grudging respect in his voice. "Impossible. Such technology is beyond even Tellarite capabilities." "Perhaps," Wilson said with a small smile, "but I think you'll find humans are full of surprises." In engineering, Lieutenant Commander Singh and his team worked feverishly, adapting the cloaking device to the Tellarite shuttle. Yaksa watched, his initial skepticism giving way to curiosity as he peppered Singh with questions. "You're using a phase-shifted graviton field?" Yaksa mused, stroking his tusks. "Ingenious. We've theorized about such techniques, but never successfully implemented them." Singh grinned, his hands flying over the control panel. "It's all about thinking outside the box, Your Majesty. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective." As they neared Tellarite space, Wilson gathered his senior staff and Yaksa in the briefing room. Holograms flickered to life, displaying a three-dimensional render of the palace and surrounding grounds. "We'll approach under cloak," Wilson explained, gesturing to the display. "Emperor Yaksa will pilot the shuttle, with Lieutenant Petrov and a security team providing backup. Once inside, we'll need to move quickly to neutralize the coup leaders and secure key systems." Yaksa leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with newfound commitment. "I know every nook and cranny of that palace. With your technology and my knowledge, we will crush these upstart rebels." Wilson nodded, a hint of a smile on his lips. "Then let's get to work. It's time to take back your throne, Your Majesty." The cloaked shuttle slipped through Tellarite space undetected, a ghost gliding past orbital defense platforms. Yaksa's clawed hands danced over the controls with surprising dexterity, guiding them through a maze of sensor nets. Inside the palace, chaos reigned. Alarms blared as the infiltration team, led by Yaksa and Petrov, moved swiftly through darkened corridors. They rounded a corner, coming face to face with General Zora and a squad of heavily armed guards. Zora's eyes widened in shock, her plasma cannon humming to life. "Yaksa, you dare return and with human filth at your side?" Petrov reacted instantly, activating a portable force field that shimmered into existence, just as Zora fired. The plasma bolt splashed harmlessly against the barrier, casting eerie shadows across the ornate walls. "Now, Your Majesty," Petrov shouted. Yaksa lunged forward, his bulk belying his speed. He slammed into Zora, sending them both crashing to the floor. The plasma cannon skittered away, its charge dissipating with a hiss. Around them, the security team engaged Zora's guards in close-quarters combat. Stun grenades detonated with sharp cracks, disorienting the Tellarite soldiers. Petrov moved with fluid grace, his martial arts training evident as he incapacitated two guards in rapid succession. Yaksa and Zora grappled on the polished floor, tusks clashing as they fought for dominance. The Emperor's face was a mask of fury, years of pent-up grievances, finding release in this moment of visceral combat. "You betrayed me, Zora," Yaksa roared. "I trusted you, and you repaid me with treachery." Zora snarled, her fingers clawing at Yaksa's face. "You've grown weak, old fool. The Empire needs strength, not your pitiful attempts at diplomacy." With a mighty heave, Yaksa pinned Zora to the ground. He looked up, meeting Petrov's eyes. "Now, human, use your device." Petrov activated another stun grenade, its energy washing over Zora. Her eyes rolled back, and she went limp beneath Yaksa's bulk. Silence fell, broken only by the labored breathing of the combatants. Yaksa slowly rose, his gaze sweeping over the unconscious forms of Zora and her guards. He turned to Petrov, something unreadable in his expression. "Well done, Lieutenant," Yaksa said gruffly. "It seems I may have underestimated your people's capabilities." Petrov nodded, allowing himself a small smile. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Shall we proceed to the throne room?" Yaksa's tusks gleamed as he bared them in a fierce grin. "Indeed, it's time to reclaim what is mine, and perhaps forge a new path for our peoples." As they moved deeper into the palace, the sounds of conflict echoed through the halls. The future of two civilizations hung in the balance, with the outcome far from certain. As Yaksa and the human strike team neared the throne room, the Emperor's eyes gleamed with a newfound respect for his unlikely allies. "I must admit, Captain Wilson," Yaksa rumbled, his tusks clicking softly, "your people's ingenuity is impressive." Wilson nodded, his attention focused on the ornate double doors ahead. "We have our moments, Your Majesty." With a thunderous crash, they burst into the throne room. The usurpers, caught off guard by the Emperor's sudden return, scrambled for their weapons. But it was too late. The combined force of human technology and Tellarite commitment proved overwhelming. In the days that followed, as order was restored to the Tellarite Empire, Yaksa found himself deep in contemplation. The humans' innovations had opened his eyes to new possibilities. He summoned Wilson to his newly reclaimed private chambers, the room's opulence a stark contrast to the utilitarian design of the Heracles. "Captain," Yaksa began, his voice uncharacteristically subdued, "your assistance has given me much to consider. The Empire has grown stagnant. We must evolve." Wilson raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What do you have in mind, Your Majesty?" Yaksa's eyes blazed with sudden intensity. "A revolution, Captain. Not of blood, but of ideas. I am establishing the Advanced Technology Initiative, and I want you to lead it." Wilson blinked, taken aback. "Me? But I'm not a scientist. "You are precisely what we need," Yaksa interrupted. "Someone who can bridge our two worlds, who understands both the scientific and the practical." As Wilson absorbed the magnitude of this opportunity, Yaksa continued, outlining his vision for a joint human-Tellarite endeavor that would reshape both their societies. Weeks later, the initiative was in full swing. The cavernous hangar bay of the Imperial shipyards buzzed with activity as human and Tellarite engineers swarmed over Yaksa's flagship, the Thunder Tusk. Lieutenant Commander Amir Singh, his hands deep in the guts of a newly designed warp core, called out to his Tellarite counterpart, "Grox, we need to realign the dilithium matrix. Can you boost power to the containment field?" Grox, a burly Tellarite with a shock of silver fur, grunted an affirmative. His thick fingers danced across a control panel with surprising delicacy. "Done, but I still say we should route the excess plasma through the auxiliary conduits." Singh grinned, wiping sweat from his brow. And I still say that would overload the EPS grid. But tell you what, let's run a simulation and see who's right. Nearby, Commander Olivia Prescott observed the exchange with satisfaction. Yaksa had handpicked her to command the Thunder Tusk's shakedown cruise, and she was determined to make it a success. The blending of human and Tellarite crews hadn't been without its challenges, but moments like this gave her hope. Commander, a young ensign approached, datapad in hand. We've finished loading the last of the supplies. We're ready to depart on your order. Prescott nodded, a thrill of anticipation coursing through her. Excellent. Inform all department heads to report to the bridge. It's time to see what this ship can do. The Thunder Tusk glided out of space dock, its newly refitted hull gleaming. On the bridge, human and Tellarite officers worked side by side, their initial awkwardness giving way to a fragile camaraderie. All systems nominal, reported the Tellarite at Ops. Warp drive standing by. Prescott settled into the command chair, allowing herself a small smile. Take us out, helmsman. Let's put her through her paces. The ship surged forward, stars streaking past on the monitor as it leapt to warp. For several hours, all proceeded smoothly. Engineer Singh reported enthusiastically on the performance of the hybrid systems, while Tactical ran through a series of weapons tests that left nearby asteroids as little more than space dust. Then, without warning, alarms blared. The ship dropped out of warp, shuddering violently. Report! Prescott barked, gripping her armrests. The human science officer, Lieutenant Chen, frowned at his readouts. Massive power fluctuations in the warp core. We're venting plasma from the starboard nacelle. Singh's voice crackled over the comm, tight with tension. Bridge, we've got a cascading failure in the intermix chamber. I can't stabilize it. As Prescott issued rapid-fire orders, coordinating damage control teams and attempting to pinpoint their location, a chilling realization settled over the bridge. They were stranded in an uncharted sector, their experimental drive crippled. And somewhere in the bowels of the ship, a saboteur smiled, their work only just beginning. Back on Teleria Prime, Captain Wilson received the distress call. His face grim, he turned to Emperor Yaksa. Your Majesty, we have a situation. Situation, Your Majesty. We have a problem. Yaksa's tusk clicked in agitation. Speak plainly, Wilson. What's happened? The Thunder Tusk has gone dark. Last transmission indicated catastrophic engine failure. They're stranded in uncharted space. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. Sabotage? Wilson nodded grimly. It's looking that way. We need to mount a rescue operation immediately. Agreed, but this changes nothing about our larger plans. The Advanced Technology Initiative must continue. As rescue efforts for the Thunder Tusk unfolded, Wilson found himself thrust into a role he never anticipated. Yaksa, impressed by the captain's handling of the crisis, appointed him Imperial Viceroy, an unprecedented position for a human. Years passed. The alliance between humans and Tellarites deepened, yielding technological marvels that transformed both societies. Wilson's days blurred into a whirlwind of diplomatic meetings, scientific briefings, and strategy sessions. On the 10th anniversary of the coup attempt, Wilson stood beside Emperor Yaksa on a gleaming platform overlooking the sprawling imperial shipyards. Before them, a sea of human and Tellarite faces gazed up expectantly. Yaksa raised his arms, his booming voice carrying across the assembly. Today, we unveil the crowning achievement of our partnership, the TES Unity. A massive Durasteel curtain fell away, revealing a starship unlike any other. Its sleek lines blended Tellarite power with human elegance, a physical embodiment of their alliance. Yaksa continued, his voice swelling with pride. This vessel represents not just our technological prowess, but the strength we have found in unity. Humanity's innovative spirit has... A shrill alarm cut through the Emperor's words. Wilson's comlink chirped urgently. What is it? He hissed, stepping away from the podium. Lieutenant Commander Singh's voice crackled through. Sir, long-range sensors have detected a massive fleet approaching at high warp. They're not responding to hails. Wilson's blood ran cold. He turned to Yaksa, who had paused mid-speech. Your Majesty, Wilson said quietly. We have a situation. Yaxa's eyes hardened. He barked orders to his staff, then addressed the crowd. Citizens of the Empire, I must cut this ceremony short. All military personnel, report to your stations immediately. As the shipyards erupted into controlled chaos, Wilson and Yaxa hurried to the command center. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing a terrifying armada bearing down on Tellarite space. By the ancient gods, Yaxa breathed. I've never seen ships like these. Commander Prescott's face appeared on a view screen. Imperial Command, this is the Unity. We've launched probe drones to gather more data on the incoming fleet. Wilson leaned forward. What have you found, Commander? Prescott's expression was grim. Sir, the technology we're seeing, it's beyond anything in our databases. And the size of this fleet, we believe they're of extragalactic origin. As if to confirm her words, a chilling message boomed across all subspace frequencies. Peoples of the Milky Way, we are the Andromedan Federation. Your galaxy has been deemed ripe for conquest. Resistance is futile. Surrender now or face annihilation. Yaxa turned to Wilson, his eyes blazing. Supreme Allied Commander Wilson, he said, using the title for the first time, it seems our true test has arrived. Wilson nodded, his mind already racing with strategies. Indeed, Your Majesty, and we'll face it together. As alarms blared and ships scrambled to defensive positions, Wilson knew that the next few hours would determine the fate of not just the Tellarite Empire, but the entire Milky Way galaxy.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.